Hi everyone. Hi, my name's Rachel Glazner. I'm a chemistry instructor at Pellissippi State Community College. I'm also a mobile trainer for Tennessee Board of Regents. We're doing a live mobile showcase today. I wanted to go ahead and log in to get things started, try to get some people some time so they can see the broadcast. If you guys are new to Periscope, hi Darlene. If y'all are new to Periscope, depending on what kind of device you're on, if you swipe upwards on your screen on my screen, I'm swiping right, it'll pull up an additional screen where you can see who's logged in, and you can also share this. So swipe up on your screen or to the right, and you'll see a share option. Put this on your Facebook, put this on your Twitter, help get the word out about our mobile showcase today. Hi! Thank you guys for joining. So again, if y'all are just now tuning in, feel free to share this broadcast. If you've never done that, you just swipe up on your screen or swipe to the right. It'll kind of bring up an additional screen and you can share it. Hey, Abs for College. Hi, Linda. Hi, guys. So let me switch my screen back around. We are going to look at nearpod today. And so nearpod is a mobile technology tool that I use in my classroom. If you guys want to try it out with me, I'm going to have two screens going so you can follow along. The one we're seeing right now is the instructor screen. But if you guys want to play along, I'll also have the student screen up. So we're going to use the website nearpod. I'm trying to see if I can get this to zoom in. Nearpod.com. There we go. So if y'all want to go to www.nearpod.com, we can get you set up with a student account really fast. You don't just sign up for anything. Just go to the website. That's one of the reasons I love this as an instructor is my students don't have to pre-sign up for anything. We just have to get them to sign in class that day. So if y'all are just now logging in, thanks for joining us. We're going to play with nearpod today. I'm really geeking out with this. I'm using Periscope to talk to you guys, and we're going to look at an app through Periscope. So if you guys want to play with me, just go to www.nearpod.com. You can see it on my screen right here. You just go to this website, and if you're at the website, you want to find a place to put a PIN number. So for example, on mine, here's the website. I have a little space to put in a PIN number, and the PIN number today is PZVJT. So if you're playing along, type in PZVJT, and then we're going to use our mouse to go and push enter. And that's going to bring up the student screen for this. Anytime a student gets on Nearpod, the first thing they have to do is type in their name. So they know me, so my name instantly comes up on this computer. But type in your name, and you push send. And so this is the student screen. So me as the instructor, I am now in charge of this student's computer. I've taken over this computer with my presentation, so they can't click back and forth on the presentation. They're awaiting my next thing. So thank you guys for joining. I see a few more people just came in. I'm Rachel Glazner. I'm from Pellissippi State Community College. I'm also a mobile trainer for TBR. If you'd like to play with Nearpod with us, just go to www.nearpod.com, and the PIN number for today is PZVJT. You don't need any additional login information. You just need to type in the PIN number. And so what we're going to do is, as you guys log in, this is the instructor screen. I'm getting a student list going here. And so in real time, my students would come and they log into Nearpod. It doesn't matter if they're late or on time, they always have to put their name in first thing. So on the instructor screen down here at the bottom, this is kind of a fancy way to give a PowerPoint. If you are a PowerPoint type person, this is a really easy way to present your materials. But instead of just clicking through the slides, we can now choose which slide we would like to get started with. So before I do that, hi everyone! I just noticed a few more people have logged in. If you guys want to play with me today, just go to www.nearpod.com and put in PZVJT as our pin for today. And in the comments below, while we're doing this, let me know what you guys think. Let me know where you guys are watching me from, what state, what school. Are you a student? Are you a faculty member? I know this is so early for all of us to be scoping in today, but I hope you kind of enjoy this presentation. Nearpod's something I use with my organic chemistry class, but don't let that scare you. Nearpod's applicable for all different types of subjects. So if y'all just logged in, I have two screens going. One's going to be the student screen and one's going to be the faculty screen, so you can kind of get a multi-view of what's happening. So let's see how we're going to do this. So on the faculty screen, it's a drag and drop system. So you just take your slide, whatever you want to present to the students, and drag it in. And so again, I see my slide on my instructor screen, and my students also see it on their screen. So with my little talk here, I wanted to talk about why I started doing this, and that's what this first slide's talking about. When I started teaching, I noticed my students have a lot more devices than I was kind of led to believe or told. And they kept using them in class, and it bothered me. I wanted them to be learning chemistry, not just playing with them in class. So I kind of thought, well, what if I played with them? What if I'm making them busy on these devices? Would that be a better use of their mobile technology-ness that they had to be using at that moment? And the other thing that this usually makes some people laugh is jealousy. I would have students bringing their tablets up to me, showing me that they're taking notes on these tablets. A lot of my students were asking me, why am I not at least using clicker questions because of the format of my class? And the reason I wasn't using clicker questions was because as an organic chemistry class, we got to be able to write out those answers. So clickers just weren't enough. So in comes Nearpod. So again, instructor screen, pull it up, drag and drop your next slide. Just a quick mention of this, as I said, here's the student screen. A lot of people told me that my students didn't own these devices. And if you kind of look at these percentages, I've been collecting these over the last few years just for my personal classes. About 75% of my class own a smartphone with internet capabilities. Probably more own it than that, but the question is worded, would you be willing to use it in class? So about 75% of my students said they're willing to use their smartphone in class with me. About 10% of my students actually only own a flip phone, but they were willing to use the internet on there to access the web if we did that in class. I was actually surprised about 55 to 60% of my students typically own a tablet. Now the tablets are all over the place with Kindle, iPads, Androids, but again, that's why I like Nearpod, because it's web-based. They do have an app for iOS and Android, but since it's web-based, anything that has internet can use this website. And then the best part of this is almost 100% of my personal students own a laptop that they're willing to use in class. And so with any of these devices, they can just bring them to class and log in. And if any of my students don't have a device, I just have them pair up for the day. Find someone with a device, and in that login screen, log in and put both your names. So it's an easy way to kind of get around that. And Nearpod is free, but I always like to point out this column. You'll notice that 65% of my students said that they would be willing to pay for an app if their instructor said that it would be useful for class. And on a secondary survey, a lot of my students told me that not only would they want to pay for the application, but if there was a way to replace textbooks because they're cheaper with applications, that they would be open to that. So let's kind of see some of the things that nearpod has to offer us. So in line with the quiz questions, again, drag and drop, drag your quiz questions we have set up. This is my instructor screen. You'll see that I have some students logged in right now. And then my student screen, they're over here and they're ready to take a quiz. So this is very similar to clicker questions. It's going to have the question at the top. If you need to make the picture larger, you just click on it. Because a lot of people are like, it's too little. So you just click on it and read the question, and you can select your answers. Send it in just like you would a clicker question. As soon as someone sends one in, on my instructor screen, I get what answer they submitted. So I can see how fast students submit answers here. And I can also see if they're getting them correct and incorrect with this easy diagram on the left-hand side. So this gives me some real-time feedback on how quickly my students are answering questions, because I believe that leads to a little bit of telling me how confident they are in answering the questions. But also I can see in real time who's getting it right, who's getting it wrong. Yep, I see a lot of wrong answers. So as an instructor, this gives me a learning moment for myself where I might be able to say to myself, okay, my students as a majority aren't getting this topic. Let's do a few more practice problems. And then there's always this share feature where you can send your students the answers. So I tell my students what the class average was. So here, only 25% of people got it correct. So that way they can compare themselves to the class. So again, learning moment for them. How are you comparing to the class? How much are you getting out of this? So this is my student screen, so I got 100% correct. And then down at the bottom, it does show what the correct answers were. So again, this helps me create a discussion of chemistry. Pair with each other. See how y'all did. Compare the answers. I try to get my students to tell each other the correct answer instead of me always giving them the correct answer. So this is a great feature because of the real-time feedback I get and how I can send the answers to my students. A lot of clicker software does not offer the ability to send the students the answers in this format. But let me show you the game changer for this. Now, I know I'm showing you organic chemistry questions, but don't be shy. Draw on yours so you can see what it would look like. Again, this is my instructor screen. So you can see I'm waiting to see my students' drawings in real time for this question. On my student screen, I kind of have two things going on. The smaller screen gives you a zoomable version of the picture. So I always have that in case my students want to zoom in, or they can just use the regular screen that we have going here. And so on this screen, you'll notice in the bottom left, they have their choice of pen color, how big the pens are, highlighter, text. You can actually also take a picture. So with this, they're supposed to circle their functional groups. So they can do it on here. But my students also have a copy of the paper notes here. And so if they want, they can do this on paper and then take a picture of it and send me the picture. And so for more complex questions, a lot of students love that feature. Again, this is very simple because I'm just drawing circles around functional groups. But there's a lot of options with multimedia with this where I can do a text here and put in that one of my functional groups over here to the left is an amide. Again, I know y'all are organic people, but just think about the possibilities of being able to draw on something. If you're an English instructor, give students a paragraph. Have them correct it for you in real time. Can they correct it? Think about geography. Have them label things in real time. Biology, anatomy and physiology, math. So many of these courses are based off of handwriting, and Nearpod is the first thing where it has pretty good handwriting recognition. It's available on all devices. It can be used on any website. As you can see here, I'm just using it on a regular old website. It's a little easier to use on a tablet. But this drawing feature has really changed the face of what real-time feedback for instructors can look like. So over here to my instructor tablet, you can see the circles that I just did on my student account. And I always swipe through what my students are sending me in real time. And yeah, perfect. You can see Candace here sent a picture of her dog. And again, with pictures, my students like to draw out more complex things and send it in as a picture. And you can draw it, so it's kind of a multimedia thing. And then again, there's always that share button. So Nearpod does a really good job of sharing everything in a anonymous fashion. So here as the instructor, I can see the student's name, but on my student screen, you'll notice there is no identification for this answer. So in my class, again, I'm trying to generate a discussion of chemistry. So I send out typically what I consider a good question versus a maybe not so good question. And again, I have them pair together and discuss, well, why is this correct? Why is this incorrect? So again, Nearpod is a really good way to present your materials so you can kind of see who's logged in if you're a PowerPoint person. It's a good way to incorporate clicker questions. It has drawing questions. And at the end of every class, I also try to give a poll question. And I try to ask my students, what topic did you feel most confident in today? There's a lot of research that is linked to confidence in chemistry in males and females with the STEM science, and especially, in my opinion, in the sciences. So I asked them, well, how did they feel? So not only do I get the feedback from asking them the questions here in class, but also I've given them an opportunity to tell me what topics they feel like they learned the most about. If they felt really low in confidence in something, and or if they felt really, if they did poorly on a lot of questions, that's where we're going to start in the next class. So again, that's a way for me to help personalize my course for how those students are doing and feeling. So I submitted my feelings as a student, and on my instructor iPad, again in real time, I can see what my students are most confident in. And again, that just gives them a way to rate the class. And if they put, let's see, E was none of the above. So if I get a lot of none of the aboves, then the next class we typically do a lot of warm-ups with this. So the drawing feature, the quiz questions, and the poll features, in my opinion, are extremely useful in higher education. There's a lot of other things you can do with Nearpod, which includes fill in the blank and just open-ended questions. They have matching, and you can also put websites in with this. Yeah, Nearpod's performance is really quite seamless now. Very rarely do I have a problem. Hi! Rarely do I have a problem in utilizing it. There's not a lot of lag in between the two, and so a lot of the issues I end up having are just based off of my local internet connection problems. But one thing I want to point out with this, again, I have a few more people logging in. I get a real-time student list here. And so if my students log out of a Nearpod session, so I just logged out, you can see in real time on my student list that they have logged out. And that's so exciting to me. Again, I wouldn't recommend this as a lockdown browser fully for an exam, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this, my students are using their devices in class and they are playing with things. So I wanted a way to where I could control their device. So usually they'll try to mess with me and they'll leave. And all it takes is I'll call them out. I'll just say, Candace and Rachel, y'all left my digital classroom. Y'all need to come back because this correlates to points. in class, and these are important topics for class. So it just takes calling a few people out a few times, and then they can come right back in and they learn their lesson. So again, this is a really good way to keep students on task, and they feel like they're playing because they're using their devices. So the last thing I wanted to show you, again, this is a drag and drop system. This is my instructor iPad. So if this was your PowerPoint slide, just drag and drop it, and that goes to the students' iPads. I wanted to show you a little bit about my student surveys. And so my students are getting what I'm trying to achieve with this. I wanted to keep my students on their toes. I wanted to keep them alert and engaged in the material in and outside of class. I wanted to make sure they weren't just playing on their mobile devices in class. My students are recognizing that it's interactive teaching, and that's actually probably not a phrase I've told them to use. And this is my favorite, makes you look ahead in their notes. Like I mentioned, a lot of my students already have access to these notes ahead of time, the questions I'm going to ask. So a lot of times they'll try to make sure that they've pre-looked over it. Or sometimes I'll just start class with a question, and if they didn't look over it ahead of time, they'll get that one blank. They won't have enough time to answer it. So a lot of good feedback coming from students, but in the same token, for some students, we can't assume that the technology is intuitive to them because they haven't used it for educational purposes. So there is a little bit of a learning curve with that. So from the first day of class, I give them their syllabus through nearpod. I take them to our course webpage through nearpod. And by using it from day one, it really helps lower the stress of using it. This comment actually came from when I didn't use it on the first day. I just kind of threw it at them. So if you're into or looking into getting into some educational technology, make sure you've incorporated a little bit of a learning curve with that. And then with them working all the time, this is just a little forewarning. Sometimes you have to play with what your internet connection is like. And that's what this comment is about. Sometimes you got to play with that a little bit and make sure that your internet resources can handle having that many devices log in at one time in one room. And then one comment that I didn't have up here is actually a grumpy one, but it's because I make my students work in my class. So back to what we just showed, I'm keeping them on their toes. I'm keeping them engaged. And, sometimes they don't feel happy about that. They would rather sit there and zone out in class. But in my class, they can't do that. So sometimes they feel grumpy, but that's okay to me. If you feel sad that I'm making you work, I can live with that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys, show you a little overview of how really easy it is to use Nearpod. If you have a PowerPoint, you just drag and drop it into the system and it's ready to rock and roll.